I thank you very much for tuning into That Will Never Work podcast. The most dangerous four words in any leader's vocabulary aren't "I don't know how." I've always been so busy because busyness has become the most socially acceptable excuse for strategic avoidance, lack of clarity, and the complete absence of leadership that most organizations mistake for dedication. Our guest today, who is a direct, strategic, credential, candid, globally experienced, results-obsessed, and unflinching leader, and is known for her candor and her ability to make the complexities of leadership easy. And she will help you see opportunities you never knew existed, starting with the opportunity hiding inside every hour you've been wasting performing a schedule that isn't taking you, your team, or maybe even your business anywhere that actually matters. Let's talk about it right after this.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work, an award-winning podcast where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
So let's put it like this. Our guest, she's a unicorn, literally, right? She is one of fewer than 100 people in the United States to hold both the Certified Speaking Professional and a Certified Management Consulting designations. These are some very, very distinguished honors that one person can hold. So I wonder how she holds that on her shoulders, to be honest. But I want y'all to understand that this guest right now, Liz Weber, is truly, truly wonderful individuals, and I want you to welcome her with open hands. Liz, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Oh, Maurice, I'm so happy to talk with you today. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you and your listeners.
Sure, thank you very much. And so, Liz, there's a topic that we want to touch today. And the idea of you're not as busy as you think you are. So before we get into this strategy, I want to start with the idea. When you look at the average leader or entrepreneur schedule, what is the honest diagnosis? And why do most driven, most ambitious, and most capable people tend to be the most deluded about how they're actually spending their time?
You know, Maurice, that is such a huge problem and a really good question because I see this as a challenge with just about every leader that I work with, no matter how experienced they are, no matter which industry they're in, no matter how many years they've been in a leadership or ownership role. And what I find causes my most experienced or least experienced and effective leaders to get diluted is what I also fall into the trap of doing is stepping into tasks and roles and situations that our team members should be handling that we either are not allowing them to do because we don't trust them to handle it as well as we would, or B, we haven't trained them how to do it because for some reason we think it's too difficult for them to do, and or C, we haven't taken the time because everything is so busy. So it's easier if I just do it myself. I'll just get it done. And that C, that last mindset, is a trap that a lot of high achieving leaders fall into because, you know, for many of them, movement and motion is progress, is success, is action. So the busier they can stay and the more things they can tick off their mental or tracking to-do lists, the better they feel about themselves. But in reality, what they're doing is they're just continuing to overload themselves with things that are not essential for either their business to move forward or for them to be spending their time and intellectual power on, and teaching their team members how to spend time doing the things their team members are hired to do so they get maximum leverage.
So, Liz, I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's 2 points that you brought out very, very subtly. One, you acknowledge that you may fall into this boat as well. A lot of times we don't accept that we are in a certain boat, especially if it could be viewed negatively. But number two, there's another part of that as well. Do I even trust the people around me enough to give them my baby, to give them my dream? So pick one, whatever one you want to choose, because I think both of them show true leadership one way or the other.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And this is one of the questions that I have with again, a lot of my clients that want to scale their business. And it's one of the reasons that we get very clear initially is, what do you want this business to look like in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? If it's a family-owned business, what kind of legacy business do you want to leave for your heirs? And it sounds like a very simple question, but it's not for a lot of individuals, because it's one thing to say, well, I want to leave a business for my family, but well, what kind of business? How big of a business? What industry do you want to focus in? What types of products do you want to be involved with or not involved with? And forcing them to get a little bit more clear versus just saying, I want to leave a $100 million business for my family.
Right.
That cause to get more focused starts to create for me a framework of the type of business I need to help them build, which means the type of infrastructure, the type of organizational design, the type of product or services portfolio that we're looking at, and then the type of talent that business is going to need to achieve what this owner says he or she wants to achieve. And when I can take it back to that type of objective framework, that's when I can then say, Maurice, so if you want to be the CEO, which is great because you started this baby, you're going to need a team of 16 initially, probably for the first 5 years. And then these are the different types of responsibilities those team members are going to need to be able to own. And then this is what you need to be doing as a CEO. And that conversation is hard for a CEO or owner to hear, because to what you identified, as we're having that conversation internally, you're going, oh my God, but I'm the one that does that. Oh my God, no, but I do that. Oh, I do that. And yeah, it's a matter of trust. It's a leap of faith. And it's a risk, because your reputation, your income pipeline, everything is on the line. But once we're able to get that level of clarity, then designing those different positions and then recruiting or developing individuals for those positions becomes a much more objective and straightforward process.
And so once again, Liz, see, this is what we're talking about we're seeing master work right here, because again, Liz just seamlessly bring out so many different points. One, Liz, how many people have you spoken to that has the end at the beginning? They think about what their real objective really is. Because you're talking about, hey, how do you get out of, or how do you transition out of this organization? A lot of times we don't consider that. Number two, once again, Liz, masterfully done. Am I working really in my business or on my business? Again, two different types of mindset. So can you explain that a little bit as well? You're just changing one letter in that. So how do you determine what's in versus on one's business?
Well, it goes back to what I alluded to earlier is helping the owner, the leadership team, whomever, understand what I'm asking them is what type of business do you really want to have? And so for instance, I had a client a number of years ago who said, I want to have a $25 million business. And I was like, okay, great. At the time, his business was about a $5 million business. And I said, that's great. And he said, because I want to be a philanthropist. I want to really contribute to my community. I said, I love the idea. But let's get a little bit more clear, because I need a little bit more structure here. So when you say a $25 million business, are you talking 25 million revenue or gross margin or net, or 25 million that you're able to kick out over the lifetime of your philanthropy? Help me understand what that number really means to you. And he just stared at me like, oh, well, each one of those questions is a different type of business then,
Right.
isn't it? And I said, yeah, each one speaks to a different type of scale in your business
Right.
and what you're offering.
Right.
So it goes to that idea. And then it's also to your question of working in the business versus working on the business. I've got a couple clients right now, family-owned businesses, that are doing great for, even in this economy, their businesses are growing, but it's helping the ownership team realize this business can't scale and create the family legacy business you want for your children and possibly your grandchildren if you don't get out of so much of the day to day and step back and build a team around you that, even though you're one person, you have, at least 8 different positions that you are either fulfilling or touching or leading or actually, kind of shadowing and auditing. And we've got to look at those different functional roles you're playing. For the best of intentions, you are inhibiting team member growth. You're inhibiting your company's growth because either we haven't been able to find the right person for the positions that you're covering or you're hovering over, or we haven't helped you trust the individuals in those roles well enough to do the jobs that they need to do. So what's inhibiting that trust? Do we need to give them better processes? Do we need to give them better training? Do we need to give them some better onboarding? Do we need to give them better worksite tools? What is inhibiting you from letting them do their jobs without needing to hover? And in one case, one of my family-owned businesses, that epiphany of helping him understand that for the best of intentions, that he thought his hovering was actually hurting his team. Because, you can just imagine this. If you hover and the team member knows you're trying to help them learn, they're also have got this sense of safety that, well, if I mess up, Maurice is going to catch it. He's going to catch me and I'm not going to fail. There's a very different level of intent. If you're not hovering and you're not anywhere around and I've got to deal with this situation all on my own and solve it, that really takes my level of thinking and responsibility to a whole new level. Because if I succeed or if I fail, when you come back and you see the results of what I did, either you're going to say, hey, Liz, that was a great job. I really like the way you thought through that. Or you're going to say, Liz, help me understand why you thought that was going to be a good decision.
Right.
And that's a different level of thinking. And that's an example of you demonstrating to your team that you're working on the business and on them versus in the business.
So, Liz, you're asking me, because you're talking about clarity. Sometimes clarity becomes more thinking than emotional, right? I have to use another part of my body. And a lot of times we don't know how to remove the emotion because it is our baby, and so unfortunately we're kind of clouded. Should I really remove it 100%? Or is there a way that I can kind of massage both and still grow in that opportunity?
Oh, I love that question. I believe you need both. It's absolutely essential that you have both. And for me, the emotion in being a leader or the emotion in an organization, in a company, that's part of the culture. That's what we feel about this place. That's what we feel about what we do. That's why we care about what we do. That's why we care about how we treat each other and how we treat our clients or customers. That's all the emotion. And that's, the vision is our excitement. This is where we're going. The mission is why we do what we do. The values are how we behave and treat each other and think about our jobs and our responsibilities. So that's all emotion. And that's kind of bringing our heart into everything that we do. Not in a touchy-feely way,
right,
but in a way with passion and conviction, and that what I'm doing is important to me, and it's important to the customers, and it's important to all my colleagues. On the objective side of it, and again, this is why I love strategic planning with my clients, because we do vision, mission, and values, and we kind of do that as a level set first off to ensure that, do you even care about what you're doing? Because if you don't care about this, why bother having a strategic plan? So the vision, mission, values sets the culture and resets the culture. But then we get into the goal setting and the strategy setting, and that's the implementation roadmap. And that's where the objectivity comes into play, because that's where we can identify, are we moving towards our targets or not? And are the metrics that we're using to track our movement the right metrics? And what are they telling us? And are we responding and course correcting in real time and proactively versus reactively, and never really getting to where we want to go because we always feel like we're in defensive response mode? So it's a long answer to your question, but you can't have a strong company, I don't believe, without the heart and the objective material to work together.
So Liz, once again, so for those of you who may be missing some of these little nuggets that Liz is keep throwing out there. So Liz, there is a part that you're mentioning. I was about to go somewhere else, but I heard something else. So you talk about this mission, vision, value, right? And I think sometimes because, and I'm going to go back to the title or the topic of the show, being too busy. Sometimes we get so busy that we miss our mission, our vision, and our value statements, and whether or not we are really serving the community, both our internal and external customers. We understand those are can be two different communities, true at the same time mindset. So how important is it to make sure that we reevaluate those moments? Because sometimes we're too busy and we're too wrapped up in profit that we lose who we really are, like you're saying, in our heart.
It's essential, and again, this is why I ground so much of the work that I do in understanding your organization or your company's vision, mission, and values. And the reason for that is exactly what you're just pointing to. If your mission and the reason your company exists doesn't mean anything to you, you really don't care about it. If you're in just to make money, fine, then just go make money. You can make money anyway. It really doesn't matter what product you sell, what services you provide, what customers you want to associate with. As long as you're making the maximum dollar, you're happy, fine. Then go and be happy doing that. But for many of us, we want to spend our days doing work that means something to us, and that we believe in whatever fashion we are helping the customers who are buying from us or working with us. So to that end, one of the things that is fundamental in the work that I do with my clients is whatever strategies you're trying to move forward, whatever goals you are trying to achieve. And as I mentioned, whatever metrics you're using to track your progress in implementing those strategies and moving those goals forward, here's a question, Maurice. Are they having a positive impact on helping you fulfill your mission? Because if they're not helping you fulfill your mission, why are you doing them? It all comes back to, you're here to do something. If everything you're working on that's keeping you busy isn't moving the needle and moving the dial on helping you implement better on the mission that you've set is important to you, then why are you doing it?
So, which kind of leads me back to my other question I was going to ask, because we spoke about our emotion being involved, being able to trust other employees, and also understanding the value that these individuals bring in. So we need to know, hey, sometimes we need to be a little more whimsical in some of the questions that we ask in an interview or whatever it might be. But also understanding that these individuals, even if they're smarter than you in this opportunity, like you said something about metrics. Everyone is not, they don't understand metrics, right? What metrics are you referring to? Maybe even it's the financial, your P&Ls and all that type of stuff. Everyone is not well versed in all those type of things. So, I think sometimes we need to understand that maybe our role may not be able to audit the financial stuff because we don't know it 100%. We may not be able to audit the technical side of, hey, you know what? We're doing this podcast. Do I really understand what the conversion rate is? All that type of stuff, going from one platform to another. So can we really, or how much really should we dive into understanding like, hey, you know what? We are just a part of this process, right? that we need to have these other individuals and trust these individuals, especially if they appear to be smarter than us, because sometimes we feel a little bit more intimidated in those moments as well.
Well, if I'm understanding your statement correctly, I'm going to challenge it because I believe every employee, every associate, every team member is going to benefit when they understand how the work that they do at whatever level, whatever industry, whatever location is impacting something. And what is it impacting? And that they can move the needle because they have a job. And that job has impact on something, internal customers or external customers, as you just alluded. So if they're doing their job well, that typically by default means whomever is immediately impacted by the work that they produce, whether it's a widget or a piece of information, and they pass it on to the next person, if they do their job well, they make the next person's job or the recipient's life easier because of it. Because either the recipient got what they wanted or the next team member that received their input made their life easier. They didn't have to rework something. That's impact. On the other hand, if I mess up and I don't care and I don't quality check my work and I don't return a phone call to you, if you are my colleague, I'm now negatively impacting your work and making your life harder. If you're my client and I don't return your phone call or get back to you for a couple weeks, I am negatively impacting your ability to deal with the question you have or to move something forward. I have impact. And so I have been adamant in my career. I do not accept that individuals who work for any type of organization, private sector, government, association, whatever, nonprofit, can come to work and just be a robot and just do what they're told and not think. And the reason for this, and I preach this to a lot of my clients, is because out there, meaning when they're not at work, the client base that I work with are dealing with adults. They're not dealing with kids. They hire adults. So out there, out in their private lives, these adults who work for a lot of my client industries, government, private, association, nonprofit, in their private lives, they're deacons in their church. They're coaches. They're community fundraisers. They're advocates. They're block parents. They're in the PTA. They're doing and they buy houses. They raise families. They purchase vehicles. They have a side gig doing computer networking. They have a side gig being a podcast host. They do all kinds of really adult things out there that require a lot of brain power. But why, when they work with us then, do we think that it's acceptable for them to just come in and do only what's in front of them and not think about the impact of the work that they do? So that's where I am so focused on every single team member who takes a paycheck from your organization needs to understand that there is this contract, and I put that in quotes, that as long as you're taking a paycheck from my company, you need to understand that by default, you are agreeing to help this organization drive to the vision, fulfill the mission, and abide by the values of this company. You took the paycheck for 100% of your job. So that means in return, I get 100% effort for the job I hired you to do. That's a very objective stance to something that can be very emotional in a lot of situations.
Liz, I don't know if there's a better way to mic drop, to be honest. and I'm saying that because the stance that you've taken, right? You know, because I know I've come across a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners that don't like to empower the people. That may not also, because if I don't give them the opportunity to honor their contract, as you're stating, they're not doing their job. And now I'm frustrated. I've seen people get frustrated. Well, as you stated very early on in this podcast, if I'm hovering over them because they decided that they're not going to do the job because I know that Maurice is going to have their back, they're not honoring the contract. Now I'm upset and I feel like I'm wasting money, but I haven't given them the power to do that. So Liz, I appreciate you pointing that out again so eloquently. Like it's just a master. I like this vibe, sensei. But I thank you very much for coming on the show. Please let the people know where they can find you, where they can talk to you and say, you know what, Liz, I need to take my organization to another level and understand how I can stop being so busy and empower everyone else around me.
Sure, Maurice. I would say, first off, the easiest way that I would love to connect with your listeners is on LinkedIn. And my handle on LinkedIn is Liz Weber CMC, and Weber has just one B. Yes. Or they can catch me on my website, which is just the letters of my company name, which is WBSLLC.com. That stands for Weber Business Services LLC.com.
And for those of you, when you visit the website, it has this lovely signature. It looks nice. Like it's very artistic. I like it. But Liz, I thank you very much for coming on to the show. And please, Liz, let everyone know what you think of this question. What's your answer that I ask everybody? My would you rather question. So Liz, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
I'm gonna say a fork in the road. Because I play a game like that with my grandson. I'm going to say a fork in the road.
Nice. That's so I would like to say that your answer is very much how you spoke on this podcast. Understanding the human side versus a robot, being in robot mode. I think that's something that we are losing track of in this place of AI as well. So I thank you very much for showing that nurturing side of just being a human. So I thank you very much for answering the question and being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Maurice.
You're welcome. And of course, everyone, thank you very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. But of course, I gotta leave you with a challenge. So I would like for you to identify one conversation in your business that has been needed for more than the last 30 days, but it hasn't happened yet. A difficult performance conversation, an honest strategic discussion, a candid feedback exchange, and commit to having it before the end of this week. Write down the one sentence that needs most to be said honestly and directly to the person who needs to hear it the most. Then say it. The relationship will be stronger afterward. I can almost guarantee you that than it was before. And your organization will be more honest, more aligned, and more productive as a result. The cost of the conversation is always less than the cost of the silence. I thank you very much for listening today, and I'll talk to you just a little bit later.
Thanks for listening. Follow Maurice Chisholm on social media to stay connected and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work. Or will it?